Hey guys, welcome to another Comic Talk. Today I'm going to take a little subject that's been really bothering me for a long time, and I've kind of covered it before, but I think it's a subject that really needs to be talked about, and that's collecting. Who's a collector? Who's not a collector? Who's a buyer? Who is a dealer? All this kind of stuff that we keep hearing about. Stay tuned. We'll talk about it. Okay, guys, I hear a lot of shaming out there about people selling comics, buying comics, whether you're a collector or not a collector. First of all, being a collector does not make you any higher or mightier than anyone else. And to be honest with you, the entire concept of collecting comic books is based on a value that comics have to the individual buyer, the individual collector. A collector buys, a collector hunts, a collector does all of those things, but a collector does something else. A collector sells. And the reason the collector sells is because the collector enjoys the hobby. This isn't about collecting because you're a hoarder. This isn't because you want to hoard stuff just because you want to keep it in a dark closet somewhere and not let anybody see it. I mean, I've had conversations with people on YouTube that really blow my mind. There are guys that I understand have very, very expensive books and they keep them in a safe, in a bank, and they never go see them. So, are these guys collectors? Or are these guys investors? Because they call themselves collectors and they talk about the fact that they're collecting their stuff and putting it in a bank and they haven't seen it in years because it's in the bank and it's safe and that's a safe way to keep your books. And I get it. I'm 100% behind all that. I think you should do that. I don't see a problem with doing that. But I do have a problem when then people turn it into a situation where they start attacking people who sell comics, because anyone who's collecting inevitably will sell their comics or burn them, bury themselves with it, use them for firewood or kindling, or give it to their kids. But you know what you're not going to do? You're not taking it with you at all. So here's something I want to talk about. This is called the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. This comic book price guide was $5 in 1970. You know why they made this book? And this is what it looked like. This is a replica. This is not an original. The, re- the reason they made this book is because collectors, that's right, hobbyists, want to know the price of their stuff. Because it brings them joy to know that the majority of the world sees them of value. That's one. The other thing is, we want to know that we've got something that if we wanted to sell it, we could, which is why we grade. Why else would you bother grading your comic books? What in the world could you do if with the grades? What do you care? Really, seriously. I mean, I get these guys that are like, oh my God, I'm a collector and these people are selling comics and they're speculating and all this stuff. Yet they'll turn around and they'll do something completely against the grain of being a hobbyist. They'll complain about restored comics. They'll complain about qualified comics. You know what? Collectors have the right to buy whatever they want to buy and however it is. You don't get to say who's a collector and who's not because you weren't here when this hobby was created. None of us were. Joined this hobby around 1968. And when I joined, they were already collecting. They were pricing, not with this, but they were pricing with each other. There were price lists all over the place that you could find. People were keeping their own list. People were adding a price that they felt would be the only price that they would be able to part with these things they loved. if someone gave it to them. So that's all there's to it. I mean, look, guys, why was Wizard so freaking popular? It wasn't its content, because its content was prices. That's it. That's all Wizard was. It was a pricing catalog. This came out once a year. This was the first one that ever came out. But I'll tell you what, the Wizard magazine came out every month. And people looked forward to it. And you know what they mostly read? The price list. I don't understand the logic behind accusing people of not being a collector because they're selling their comics. I sell and buy comics all the time. And you know what? It's part of how I enjoy my hobby. I like setting things aside that I think I want to keep longer. I like setting things aside that I think I want to sell. I like going into the marketplace and putting them there. I do it all on eBay. You ever want to find me comic book 1962? Go to eBay and you can find all my stuff. Normally I run about 100 items. I'm not ashamed of that. I honestly think it's healthy for a collectible to be valuable. And the only way you can prove its value is by selling. You can be a dealer. 99.9% of every single dealer out there is a collector. You know who's not a collector? Companies like Sotheby's, companies like Heritage. They're not collectors. They're transaction companies. Guys like me, guys like Barry Gary, guys like Comic Tom, these guys love comic books. These guys have been around comic books forever. These guys enjoy comic books. Why do we attack them? Because they want to sell them. I don't get it. Even today, CGC has come out with their own grading guide. CGC is not a collector, but you know why CGC is successful? Because collectors like to know that their items are valued by others, not just themselves. They find pride in the fact that someone does give a shit about having original art, does give a shit about Amazing Fantasies 15. It almost validates our reason for why we're collecting. So yeah, you can go ahead, you can complain, you can attack, you can tell everybody that they're not a collector, that real collectors don't do this and don't do that. You don't define this game. You never have and you never will. So I'm not saying that this audience specifically does any of that, because my audience is very small and I'm a very niche channel. So I think most people that come here actually enjoy the art of collecting in every form. But if you don't, and if you honestly think there's something wrong with selling comic books, then you should attack Marvel, DC, and everyone else that makes them. Because the reason they make them is to sell them. You know why they make movies that really don't appeal too much to the old comic book guys? Because they're not meant for the old comic book guys. We're going to pass on, we're going to die, and this industry needs to continue. Just like in 1910, Yellow Kid was famous and everybody liked him, and just like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon were the cream of the crop when it came to superheroes, Tarzan, John Carter of Mars, all of those guys were around back then. Thor was a mythological creature, literally, an invention of Greek mythology, along with almost everything that comes out in the Thor magazine. And we see it out of Greek mythology. We see Hercules, and not mythology. I mean, Hercules was an actual existing person, apparently. I mean, as far as we can tell. But the reality is that it's a figure that isn't owned by anyone. Yet, a lot of individuals like to collect these figures and think that they own them. They've been through many iterations, and it's going to change in the future. It's going to change again. Captain America, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. These are the modern mythologies. We are creating the mythology of the next 100 years. So look, the entire message of this thing is I see so many people out there complaining about collections and what's collectible, what isn't collectible. Also, who's a collector, who's a dealer. There's none of that, guys. This is a hobby that's meant to be enjoyed. This isn't a hobby that was created to grade your efficiency in it or your capability or your competence to it. Okay, there are many people out there, including myself, that don't know a lot about many of the comics that are out there. We only know about those we care about. And the reason we care about them is because it's nostalgic. But on top of everything else, the reason it's more than nostalgic, because I go out and I buy ECs. I go out and I buy Golden Age books. There's nothing nostalgic about that because I wasn't around back then. The reason I buy it is because I know it's valuable. It's an investment. And if it wasn't an investment, would I buy it? Likely not. The exception could be maybe ECs because I actually love ECs and reading them. And I may collect them. I did before I knew they were valuable. Just like I did with Spider-Man. Before I knew, I bought a Spider-Man number 5 in like the 70s for $15. And I thought that was a lot of money back then, or $35, I think it was. And I thought it was a lot of money back then. So everything is relative. It all depends on what you want to do about your collection, your hobby. But don't worry so much about what everyone else is doing. Just worry about enjoying yourself. People take too much focus or place too much focus and emphasis on what everyone else is doing instead of just enjoying themselves. This is a hobby about enjoying ourselves. I think we should keep it that way. And if you want to die with your comic books, go to it. I'm not. I don't have a need to. I rather give it to someone who's going to continue the hobby, someone who is going to enjoy it as much as I did. Because I've got comics here that I know the people that first bought them are dead. Because they're that old. Look at this. Okay. This is a Golden Age horror comic. Pre-code horror, as they call it today. You know why we've gone to the term pre-code horror? Because they're worth a lot of money. Because people will spend money on them. There was a time this was trash. Nobody cared. Nobody absolutely cared. Back in the 70s and in the 80s, good girl art, pre-code horror was garbage. Nobody cared about it. I remember seeing the Daredevil Atlas books. I think they were Gleason books, the Daredevil Gleason books, and I could buy them at $1 a piece. Up into the 80s, I could buy them $1 a piece. They were worthless. Today, those Brio comics, that's the artist. Those Brio comics are worth sometimes hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. They were absolutely worthless when we were kids. Nobody cared. We were the only ones that cared. You bring your stuff home and you tell your father, "Oh, you know what? I just spent $5 on this," and he'd take it. He'd look at the cover price, and he'd say, "You're a fool, because it's only worth that much." And that's the theory behind 90% of non-collectible or non-hobbyists. They look at us and they wonder, why the hell are we spending that kind of money? And at the same time, we may look at them and wonder why they're spending that kind of money on something completely different. So anyway, guys, short video. Don't want to go on for too long. Please leave me your comments and please hit my subscribe. Please hit my like. I do need that. I want to try to grow the channel. And if you like this content, please do that. And if not, don't do it. And eventually I may stop the program. Right now, this is part of my hobby. I enjoy this. I enjoy coming out. I enjoy putting out information and content about the things I love and some of the issues that I have with what I see in the marketplace. So if you enjoy it, again, please subscribe, and I'll be seeing you soon. Okay, guys, I'm going to take you on a little tour of the comic book room. It's one of my favorite posters. It's got to be done right. I have this one right here. As you can tell, I just put it on top of the background. I really haven't attached it. I love that picture. Anyway, this is Greg Land, Fantastic Four 32, a original page by him. Fantastic Four 32 again, another original page. You can see all the Avengers show up on that one. And then here we go with Jim Starlin. It's from this comic book. That page, sorry for the glare, is right there. That page is right there. Then I've got my Golden Age artwork. These are original Golden Age, which I find incredibly rare, or have a rare time finding them. Here's an Omega Man. I actually love this Omega Man original art. I just love the details on it. Here's some of my movie posters. I got Sin City. Then we're walking towards the shelves that I have filled with toys. There's a few things in here that might be of interest. These are actual, these were original pieces that I picked up in Walt Disney World, signed by the original artist. So there's a couple of them. The Hulk hands, tricorder, phaser in the back, big Star Trek fan, Metal Men, some Monopoly games, some beautiful Batmobiles, some more Star Trek stuff. This is an original manga cartoon still that I got. They're hard to get. They're very, very hard to get. And then these are some of my wall books. Hulk number 5. This is a pedigree. It's a auto binder, and it's a Crowley copy. As you can see up there, this is an older. Sorry about the glare, guys. This is a beautiful 9.0. 6.5, Fantastic Four 10. First appearance of Batgirl. And as you can see in the background, we've got a bunch of toys and other Star Trek memorabilia. Then you've got a full collection of comic book price guides going back years. As you can see that. There's a bunch of them back there. Here's a Dr. McCoy. Submariner number 1. Fantastic Four 49. It is restored, but who cares? I'm not into hating restores, especially when they're done right. I'll tell you what, this restore was cut edges. So yeah, I mean, it cut a bit of the comic book out, but it looks gorgeous. Ghost Rider. This is the original Ghost Rider, guys. For those of you that think he was always on a motorcycle, he started off with Marvel, and he started off on top of a horse. And this is from 1952, issue number 8. And then you've got another one of my restoreds. This was a Grail. If you can see the tape on there, I've thought a lot about getting rid of that tape. I don't know if I want to crack it out and do it again, I originally sent it to CGC. Wasn't sure what I was going to get there. And this is the first appearance of Miss America in Marvel Comics. It is a qualified. There is a piece missing, as you can see. Effects story. So yeah, there's some issue there. But overall, very hard book to find. Origin of Miss America. Not the first appearance. Origin of Miss America. It's a gorgeous comic book. The condition is amazing on the cover. And any restoration that was done internally. So now, this is where I keep all my ECs. I mean, a lot of these are ECs, as you can tell. Right, but these are my slabs. A section of my slabs. Old turntable. Another Star Trek. This is Rod Taylor signature as H.G. Wells from the Time Machine movie. It's one of my favorite movies. More CGCs. This is a CGC'd Golden Age horror. These are all the CGCs. That's a beautiful, beautiful piece of artwork. Dynamic tension. That was Strangers, by the way. And then these is where I keep my books. Some more Star Trek stuff. EC libraries. And then a collection of busts. This is a Ramona Frandon original piece of artwork. There's a Mach 5 in there. It's a beautiful little car. That Rocketeer has been with me since 1991. And if you can see that back there, that's the 9/11 statue of Captain America with the American flag. It's a pretty rare low count run figurine. There's a Dr. Doom from the movie. Mini-Me in the back over there. We've got Iron Giant, Romulan's ship from Star Wars, the Enterprise. Again, guys, big Star Trek fan. This is an original Starlin. And pretty much the work area. This is my prep area. By the way, something you may have not noticed, these boxes you see back there, that's the way I keep my comics. I've been keeping them in these go boxes for a while. It's a good way to move your comics in an emergency. See how I store them? So they're actually in mint condition. And then these are some of the ones I'm prepping for sale. Some others I'm prepping for sale. These are the ones that are actually on eBay right now, that entire box. And these are the next ones to go up. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the tour. By the way, these are all my original pieces of art that are loose. You can see this is Chris Corey. That's the Joker. And that's the Batman. These are original prints, numbered and signed by Chris. He's an actual friend of Alex Ross. And then more comics. Watchmen #1. Another series of comics that I'm getting ready for sale eventually. But I don't necessarily sell everything you see all at once. This is Fantastic Four Full Circle. So anyway, guys, that's it for the comic book room. Oh, I would be remiss without showing you guys a couple of things. One is I've got 3 of the Star Wars swords, lightsabers. These are all originals. And last but not least, my iRobot poster. Had this thing for like 40 years. It's a beautiful poster. And of course, you see Darth Vader there on the side. All right, guys, now for real. This is it. Hope you enjoyed the comic book room.